listening audience, just recognize this. Vinny Boombots, okay? I think we're going to go commercial uninterrupted while we have this conversation, Vinny. Okay, no more commercial interruptions here, no matter what happens. But he's stayed up late. He's in the UK. What time is it in the UK right now?
It's 2:09 in the morning.
Oh, my God, dude, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for doing this. We don't have you on the show a lot. We're trying to catch up here. This is an important discussion because I want you to tell our listening audience what you taught me, and I was so blown away by it, dude. I had never, until you started introducing me to this, I didn't realize that the U.S. Postal Service, okay, that our postal services are one of the most powerful freaking entities on the planet. On the planet.
They are. Yes,
right?
That's correct.
And tell us why.
All right. Well, it's not just the U.S. Postal Service. It's called the Universal Postal Union.
Yes.
It's based in Bern, Switzerland. Let me explain two things before I talk about the Postal Union. Mm-hmm. I want to explain that a corporation cannot have a contract with anything because it's a dead entity, right? It's a fiction. We are dead entities based on our name in all capital letters on our birth certificates. Now, that's a huge subject, so everyone who's interested should just go on YouTube and put in birth certificate, and there's a lot of information, and everyone should know what our birth certificates are, mm-hmm. Okay? And I would have to take an hour at least to explain.
Right. We'll learn more about it. This is going to be a long-term project.
I want you to park those things, and then I'll say briefly that a contract, and this will help when I explain the Postal Union. A contract is between two private flesh and blood individuals or more, right? And they carry wet ink signature or autographs. Yeah, and on that contract is what each party's going to do and is responsible for, right. And nobody can interfere with it. Yeah. So one of the tricks they play on us is to tell us that we're in contract with them. We're not. Okay, so when a debt collector comes to you and they say to you, we're collecting this money because you owe your bank or you owe whoever this money. It's not the thing you have to do is just say, well, let me see the contract, a valid contract. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they can't show you one because it doesn't exist, because a corporation cannot have a contract because it is a fictional dead entity. So park that. And Universal Postal Union, before there was Postal Service, they have messengers and runners and the Pony Express and things like that. So they decided, how can we unionize the entire planet? And they came up with this near perfect system to basically give everybody, every country, every nation, a common, something in common, which was the postal roads, which they own, the Universal Postal Union. They own every road in the world. Okay, so this way they can do business with each other from all over the world, and that's how it started. Now, basically, when you buy stamps, they have value, and they are backed by gold. It's probably the most factual currency on the planet right now is postal money. Yeah. Mm. So if you're going to buy stamps or pay postage, that becomes factual money, real money, mm-hmm. right? Not this fake bullshit that we all use, right? Mm-hmm. So that park that. So it's a double-edged sword, because what they've done for us is they've given us the system, us as individuals. They've given us this great system where if I'm going to write a letter to a company or make a claim against somebody, I'm going to put a stamp on it and I'm going to sign across the stamp and to cancel the stamp, and that gives that document federal jurisdiction and federal weight. Mm-hmm. Right, so it becomes a federal document. When I say federal, another trick they played on us is that everybody thinks that federal only applies to the United States because it's the only government in the world called a federal government. But that's a trick, because the Universal Postal Law is federal law, and it's universal law, so it means it applies to every country on the planet. That's federal law. So let's say they send you, they say you owe us money, you give us this money, and they've sent that through the post office, and there's no contract. they've committed mail fraud, which carries up to 20 years in prison because they've used the Postal Service to extract monies from private individuals with no contract.
Right.
That's a big deal. Right. So this is to me, and what I'm doing in my life with all the many things, from the driver's license to the bank to credit card debt to the mortgage, to you just go down the list, is I'm challenging all of that under federal jurisdiction. Now, I'm explaining this as a big overview, and if you have Mark on, he'll be able to really drill down, and he gives great seminars and stuff, and you really learn a lot. So the Universal Postal Union is probably, to me, everyone talks about the Jesuits and the Masons, and they probably are Jesuits and Masons in the hierarchy of that. Of the Universal Postal Union, but they're probably the most powerful organization on the planet, because everything they do is backed by gold, and that their laws apply to every country on the planet. So that's one side of the sword for us, is that we can use federal jurisdiction as individuals. The other side of the sword, which is against us, is the language. Okay, again, we're back to the language, because the language is fraudulent, and the use of fraudulent language is also a federal crime. So courtrooms are basically committing federal crimes because the language they use is completely fraudulent.
Let me ask you this, though. Is this only if they get caught? They're not allowed to lie. So if you're awake to it and you challenge them on it and say, hold on a second, here, let's expose this. If you consent to their lies, then they're allowed to get away with it. But when you challenge it, they have to tell the truth, don't they?
Well, a judge in a courtroom today under maritime law is like a ship's captain. He's not the boss. Yeah, he's there to distract, to separate your conscious mind from your unconscious mind, which you were talking about earlier. Right. He's there to put pressure and to get you to get jurisdiction over you. So in a courtroom, basically, you remove the boxes and planes. You don't stand or sit. You do one or the other. You don't do what they tell you. And the clerk of the court is the most powerful person in that court that holds all the weight. And that's who you deal with. And if the judge, and they have to make joiner, what they call joiner, with your contract. The clerk has to join your contract. In other words, your claim that you bring in, and mine would be a federal document. The clerk has to make joiner. So the clerk's in charge. I'm in charge, and the clerk's in charge. The judge is a spectator, and if the judge doesn't make joiner with your contract, he has no say. He or she has no say. They can't leave. If they leave the courtroom and come back, they've reconvened, so you can't let them leave. But they're a fiduciary. Now,
okay, now hold on a second. Stop right there, because I saw this. Vinny, hold on, because I saw this. I saw this happen where a judge actually stood up, bowed, and then left. And the person that was on the other side of the banister said, "Here's the final verdict. The court has been." Abandoned by the judge. Yes. Here is the final determination. Right. And we as individuals, if we open up in a certain way, now you got to be really, really careful. Obviously, there's a big learning curve behind this. But this person was very well educated. But when that judge walks out, what authority do we have to stop them from leaving?
They can't leave the court. If they come back in the court, you got to start all over again. They can do it. They can try 3 times to do it. I've seen it happen, but each time the claimant, held their ground. Yeah, and then once it's 3 times, that's it. But usually you just don't let them leave.
Okay. Okay. What authority do I have when I tell that judge? Because I've heard Mark say this. He will not let a judge leave. You do not leave this courtroom right now. What authority does he have by saying that? Huh?
Federal jurisdiction.
Federal?
Yes, you have federal jurisdiction, universal federal jurisdiction, because your document is a federal document. It's been signed by the clerk of the court. So the court has made joiner with your document. Therefore, you and that court, your court and your court, are now working together against the people who've brought you in or the people that you've brought into court. Yeah, the judge is a bystander at this point, but the judge is supposed to be a fiduciary service.
He has a fiduciary obligation at that point, and you're challenging him, telling him, you stay here. You have an obligation to settle this matter right now, and if you abandon it, can you hold them accountable? Now, I'm not talking about
you turn the judge into your fiduciary, meaning a fiduciary is a person who's impartial, who tries to settle disputes, right? Who has to make his best attempt. And if it doesn't want to be the fiduciary, you say, then you're just a spectator, and you sit there and you listen and you shut up. And that's it. And I've seen it done. I've seen great resistance. They'll call the security, and you tell the security to stand down. You come back when I need you, because it's your court. They don't want you to know this stuff, us to know this stuff. They don't want to admit that they know this stuff. But just like people say, oh, the Luciferians, I believe in God, but the Luciferians don't. Yes, they do, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be killing Christians. It's the same thing. They know this stuff, but they're going to make you think that they don't. So it's all the trick. It's all traps. And, I'll give you an example. This guy went through a big foreclosure case. He brought it in under federal. He took over the court. Everything was perfect. He was 2 steps from the doorway. He was still in the courtroom. And the judge shouted, "Take off your hat." He took off his hat and they arrested him. Because just by doing that, he gave them jurisdiction. You don't do anything they say.
Not just gave them, he submitted to their jurisdiction by doing so, right?
Consented. Yeah.
Consented. I say consented or submitted to it by taking his hat off. He was basically standing under their jurisdiction at that point.
That's right.
They were telling him what to do, and he did it. Right? Voluntarily.
You said a good word. Understand means to stand under a statue.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it means. This is what I'm talking about with the language, what they've done with the language. Well,
and Vinny, I've already given you my commitment, but I'll tell you what, I've got my, there's a method to my madness. There's an understanding. I mean, how many hours have I spent just digging up my own information? Deborah Jordan is online right now. I've literally spent a lot of hours getting through this, and I need to internalize and understand this. I want to recommend to our listening audience right now, if we're talking about stuff like it sounds almost as if it's UFO-like. There is a learning curve. There's a learning curve with this. This is, I believe, if we can awaken people of the world to these issues right here, this is literally almost the equivalent of extraterrestrials landing. And I mean, really, it's really that big of an eye-opening. Here, let me turn this off. Sorry, we're gonna skip this. But this is the biggest thing that people must come awake to, because when you fully realize what they've done to us, that when we can talk about the mainstream media being co-opted and there's propaganda and there's a secret entity and blah 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 blah, but look at how they have literally wound us up to all speak to each other in a certain way on our own. Whether we're conscious of it or not, they have us speaking to each other in a way that causes us to operate within society to submit to their jurisdiction. We're literally part of their enslavement just by the way we're speaking and conducting ourselves and moving about in society and transacting, with merchants and buying stuff and dealing with law enforcement and the court system and paying tickets and fees and acts and statutes. They literally have us enslaved under the weaponized language, don't they?
They do. And a country or nation is defined mainly by its justice system. And now, so the definition of most countries is absolute crap now because of what they've done. And when you say we speak to each other in the way that they speak to us, I refer to it, and so do other people, as cannibalizing each other. Because if you speak if you speak the right communication language, each word has a meaning, and it's a fact. Each sentence has a period at the end. It's a fact that could be the same meaning if you read it backwards or forwards. That's the correct language. And then, so when we write our documents, we write in the correct language. There's no arguing with it.
Right.
It's fact.
And
Right?
you can actually question, by the way, you can question them because you know that they use multiple meanings. In the way you communicate via the U.S. Postal Service here in the United States, well, the way you communicate with them is you can specifically request you give me your definition of that term and be very, very specific. You have a right to know that. And you speak back to them and say, this is what I specifically mean. Here's my list of definitions of each term that I'm using. So you're actually taking that open-ended method that they use to apply any definition to any term that they're using, and you give it a full stop, close it, and say, tell me what you mean when you say something. And I want you to say what you're actually meaning based on the definitions you've given. We as human beings deserve to know what's happening, right?
We deserve it, but it's up to us to find out because they're not going to tell us.
Okay.
So, yes.
Here's my advice to everybody. Now, don't, everyone in our listening audience, you need to know this. And here's the best analogy that I can give, Vinny Mubats, and tell me if you agree with this. To open up, and this is something that I've been learning over the past couple of months, to go into this, even myself, without fully knowing exactly what I'm doing, is the equivalent of, let's say, for instance, I'm Italian, right? And I say, oh my God, if I learn how to speak English, English is the universal language. If I learn how to speak English, I can get away with a lot more in the world. And then all of a sudden you start learning English and you start speaking broken English and you have an accent and you can really screw things up and say vafangul means vafangul. And you know what I mean? Isn't this true that you cannot all of a sudden go out and start practicing broken English expecting that you're going to be understood and that you're not going to get arrested if you're in the freaking courtroom? Because if you speak out of turn and you don't fully understand what's going on, could you, sir, if you accidentally submit, like by taking your hat off, could you be arrested in that courtroom?
Yeah.
How easily? Like
easily. That's what Tom Lacavar was talking about the prison industrial complex last night, and that their goal, and that the judges have a stake and they get a cut, so they want to look for any excuse. Yeah. So
right.
They're going to arrest you. Yeah.
So somebody like Pete Santilli, if he starts to figure this out, so somebody like me that goes in for a traffic ticket and I read somebody's website and I start coming up with some newfangled way to go in and defeat the court system and I screw up, they will say, well, this guy is more beneficial to us to get him off the freaking street. Let's arrest this guy, throw him in the slammer so that he's never, ever seen again over a stupid traffic ticket because they don't want me running around talking about this, right? So they could use a very small, to set an example, a small traffic citation to get me off the freaking street because they don't want me telling the truth about this language thing, do they?
That's right, and that's what I told you, is just keep your mouth shut. Listen, the goal, I have to finish this. The goal here is not to ever be in a courtroom. Your documents, once you learn how to do them and back them up with who you are, that's your court. Yeah. And then you learn to respond to what they come back with. But it's very vast, the stuff, but I'm learning it, and anyone can learn. If I can learn it, anybody could learn it. But this is how we're going to beat them. Yeah. Everyone says we have to have protests and we have to do this and we have to boycott and blah, blah, blah. No, this is how we're going to beat them.
This is how we're going to beat them.
And this is what I'm doing. And I'm doing it for me first so I can get myself out of the system so that I can then help other people.
Yeah. For those, the majority of our listenership that tune in each and every day to find out when I'm going to be SWAT teamed, do you agree? And dude, you can say this honestly to our listening audience because you and I have had this conversation privately. When I start opening up this can of worms, and ladies and gentlemen, this is what I want you to look forward to in the coming days, weeks, and months as we start to learn through this. I'm going to bring Mark on the show. I'm going to have a conversation with him likely tomorrow. We're going to bring him on the show. We're going to start exposing this. Vinny, do you agree that this is the one thing that they do not want me talking about on the Pete Santilli show? Is it the one thing? The one thing, right?
Yep.
Did Bill Cooper ever talk about this?
No, he probably didn't know about it.
He didn't understand it, right?
No. And
this is the Ark of the Covenant.
The guy who came up with this is in your country, and he's actually a federal judge, but not in the sense that we know of. He's a real federal judge, and he's the guy that Mark learn from, and then his idea is to teach people who teach people who teach people to spread it around. Yeah.
Right. And as far as success stories, it's really going to be most dependent on someone's ability to get it right from front to back, but not do it half-heartedly. Like a lot of I refer to them as the sovereign movement that is so demonized. Those people that don't have the proper self-education, and they're out there only with partial information, out practicing law, and they're becoming paper terrorists, and they're not fully understanding how they're putting themselves in jeopardy. But how they're putting themselves in jeopardy is, in fact, through the language that is to the benefit of who these sovereigns are going up against, is it not? This is where the sovereigns get in trouble, don't they?
Yes, and you started that thought, and I'll finish it if you don't mind.
Please.
What you have to be able to do is not only learn this stuff technically, but you have to back it up with who you are. In other words, you have to stand in honor. And it's all about what they call standing in honor, having the balls to actually take it full on what comes back at you. Otherwise, the technique alone is not going to work. The technical and the knowledge is not going to work. And like you were talking about that troll, you've been talking about the troll with the video and the silver guy. The first thing I thought was he's and you said it right after I thought it was this guy is in dishonor. Judges are in dishonor. Corporations or politicians are in dishonor. We stand in honor, and if you stand in honor and you have balls and you back up, what you're going to bring back to them or bring to them, then something will protect you. And I know people who should be dead by now. After doing this for about better part of a year now, I know people who they should have been SWAT team by now. Something is protecting them. Yeah, and that's why my faith gets stronger every day, because the more I delve into this stuff and do it, the more heat I'm getting, and I'm asking for protection. So learn it all, but back it up with who you are. Back it up, and not just with confidence or false confidence. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm a courageous person. Like Pete Santilli, I'm absolutely fearless. Am I? I'm absolutely fearless. But I'll tell you what, I'm smart enough to know that what I lack in information, okay, should cause me to kind of not clam up a little bit, but to back off and not put myself in jeopardy. Like going into the courtroom, I go into the courtroom with absolute courage, but I lack the knowledge about who I am and what the language is all about. So I'm a little bit more reserved. Deborah Jordan has seen this recently with me in the courtroom. I'm fearless in certain regards, but also I say respectful of what I don't know. I'm respectful of what I don't know, right? And
rightly so.
And rightly so, because Vinny Boombots told me, oh my God, stay out of the freaking courtroom because they're going to use a freaking traffic ticket to NDAA me. And they're going to be we got this guy.
And you'll be found hanging in your jail cell.
Oh, yes. I'll be suicided. Pete Santilli committed suicide in jail. No, Pete Santilli will not be committing suicide in jail. If they ever put me in freaking jail, I will use that as an opportunity to bang my tin cup on the freaking rails, okay, and raise hell in there. They'll have me in solitary confinement, with that little mask on, like, what's his name?
Lecter.
Yeah. Hannibal Lecter.
Yes. Because I'll freaking bite their balls off,
That's right.
They'll have me wrapped up like a mummy. But anyways, Vinny Boombots. We're going to learn more about this stuff. Our listening audience needs to know, in a disclaimer, I'm just barely scratching the surface because I'm going to be bringing Mark on. We're going to talk more about this. But ladies and gentlemen, you are not, and I'm going to give a very strict warning right now. You start learning about this stuff, you are not to practice this stuff. You're not to do it. I'm going to tell you not. You need to learn right now. I need to learn. And I'll tell you what, I'm a very, very experienced public speaker. I'm experienced in the freaking courtroom and legal circles. I'm experienced in many different regards. And this is the one thing that our listening audience needs to recognize is a huge learning curve. You go out there, this is where you really get yourself in trouble. You start hanging out with a bunch of sovereigns that are, I say plumbers practicing to be lawyers, not disrespectful to plumbers, but you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So we're going to learn our way through this thing in the coming days, weeks, and months. Right? Right.
Can I plug something that'll help people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go on YouTube, and there's a channel called Carl, Carl, Michael, and on his channel there's a playlist with about 80 videos, including 2 very long seminars of Mark Kish and Christopher, the guy I learned from, and it's a good place to start because it gives you a good overview. But when you hear him talk himself live on the radio, you'll get a bigger impact from it.
This is what we're going to do. We're going to, for the first time, introduce this. Okay, we're going to put actually the playlist that I went to. Actually, Vinny Boombots made me, sent me the links and said go to Tricks and Traps. I'm going to put the links to Tricks and Traps in today's description on today's episode 1023. I think we're at, right? 1023. And that's going to be the first step. Now, Mark Kish and Christopher is going to be on the show, and we're going to schedule that. I need to have a preliminary discussion with him. That'll most likely happen tomorrow. But I think it's time now, Vinny, to move forward with this. It's time to do this because we're in trouble, brother, aren't we?
We are, and got to find every way we can to fight back, and this is a way. One of the ways, yeah.
One of the ways? What's the other way? Come on, break it down for us here in the couple of minutes.
The other way is to just throw at them the biggest amount of heavy, very, very heavy, very, very heavy rotation.
I knew you were going to get at it.
Very, very heavy rotation tonight.
Hilarious.
That's what we're going to do. E-militia, we're going to fire very heavy Bertation bullets. Okay?
That's it.
We're going to come up with our new langers.
Well, that's what they've done to the language.
Dude, this is a spiritual war, okay? This is, you mentioned it earlier that people that say that Luciferians don't believe in God, they do believe in God. That's why they chose the side of Luciferianism, because they're anti-God, right? But they know who they're up against. They just think they can win. Yeah. Right?
They're scared shitless of our Jesus. Our Christ is going to choke that fucking Lucifer out so bad.
Dude, how do we get some? How do we get some? And I trust your answer to this. I know it's going to be a responsible answer. I'm literally praying on a regular basis for divine intervention. And is that being too?
You've already had it. You've already had divine, because when you went in that courtroom, I am shocked that you weren't arrested. You were being protected. And you told me that you felt the evil when you walked in there.
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me, dude? Didn't I say that, Deborah Jordan?
We really did.
I said we are surrounded by the most evil forces right now. I'd never felt anything like that, because I'd been in a courtroom before, but it was more transactional and formal and more societal and part of the whole illusion, and I would fall right into it. But now that I'm recognizing what's happening, man, dude, I'm telling you, I sensed it. That's where evil takes place right there, is on that vessel. On that vessel.
You had divine intervention, and that's why I think the people I know who are exercising this stuff or doing it are protected by God, because they should be dead. And I'll probably be in the same boat pretty soon myself. So, that's the divine intervention is gonna. I don't think it comes for the whole world. I think it comes for those who who believe, whatever you want to call it, who have made covenant with their Creator. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to make this comment here. And by the way, just stay with me until we hear the music. Is that okay? And then I'll let you go to sleep.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing. Go back and watch the movie Devil's Advocate.
Devil's Advocate.
Go back and watch it. I mean, that tells the whole story. Who's behind the court? Everyone's like, the court system, whatever. No, it's the most powerful, diabolical thing that Lucifer has brought to this earth.
It's maritime law, and the court. When you say the court system, you don't want to blame it on a system. You want to blame it on the fact that court system operates their vessels, right?
Yes.
On the land in a very, very evil fashion to overpower us with language. Correct?
That's correct. That's the basics. Yes.
So that's the basics of it. So the U.S. court system is literally a small part of the global scheme. They've already set up this infrastructure. How long have they been working to build this system? That is now in place. This maritime law is still going to apply with the New World Order, is it not?
Oh Oh yeah,
it's going to apply. This is how they're going to enslave.
Yeah, because all the UN stuff and all this Agenda 21, that's all acts and statutes. Yeah, an act is an act. It's like an actor acting. A statute is a statue. Is just a figure,
an inanimate object.
So the law, there's a law. So you've got common law, which is our law, and then the maritime law, which shouldn't be on the land. It's in dry dock on the land, and then the federal law is what really can help us and helps them as well. So that's your level playing field.
Right. My last interaction in a courtroom, okay, and Deborah Jordan can speak to this. I made a certain type of connection, not saying that I was overpowering the court or fully understanding what was going on, but I was understanding a little bit more of the language. And the judge, and the way I connected to this individual, okay, I think he knew that I was beginning to understand what was going on. He was recognizing that.
I think so.
And I think he was respectful of that. And I think I have a person, before I start, calling for, level playing fields and all that stuff and, stripping everything down. I think the court recognizes that I know what's going on. And I think they're giving me a certain level of respect. Did they not in the last instance where I went in there?
Yes.
Right? The one thing they cannot be screwed with is my soul. My soul will always remain intact. Although I don't know how to navigate my soul through their system, okay? They will not be able to F with that, dude, okay?
That's right.
They won't be able to.
That's what I mean by standing in who you are and backing up, this stuff with who you are. So you're already there with that. It's now you got to learn how it all works and practice and start small with parking ticket and go up all the way up to the ladder to big things in life.
Would you agree with me that the best advice above and beyond my, my strict admonishment not to go out there and start, with courage and, and overconfidence, false confidence, I would say the first thing that everyone needs to do is to, as a leave me the heck alonist, get your soul and your spirit absolutely right and build your education around that. Right?
That's right. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Because that's exactly where I'm at right now. And that's the divine intervention that I said. I was just begging you to say, well, when are we going to get divine intervention? It actually is going to have to come from within for each of us, isn't it?
Yeah, but you experienced it already. It comes from within. I believe it comes from within and without. Because if you don't have it within, he's not going to come and help you. So I kind of look at it as a full circle kind of thing. Yeah. But listen, you've come a long way, man, because you've got all this knowledge. Because for the last 3.5 years of this show, God, I mean, you can fill volumes with what you know in your brain, now you're able to back it up with your soul. So it's amazing to have watched that happen. Yeah, over the last 3.5 years.
Oh yeah, Bill Cooper
and all of you, not just you.
Yeah, all of us. Shoot, the girls that I'm surrounded by have helped with my awakening, and this experiment has happened. Literally, these episodes has been, I would say, the best way to describe it. Bill Cooper. How many episodes did Bill Cooper do?
Bill Cooper wasn't surrounded by chicks.
No, but Bill Cooper did how many episodes did Bill Cooper do?
Hey everyone, this is Danny McPherson from the Pete Santilli Show. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, and if you want to help us reach as many people as possible, make sure you click the like button, comment below, and click the share button. Make sure you tune in to the Pete Santilli Show Monday through Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific at thepetesantillishow.com.